Have you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.
You are listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now. Okay, ready for me to come out? All set. Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. You've got 3 more steps, and then a long one. Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there, and both hands down about the 4th rung up.
Roger that. 10 miles, he's back on my nose. Fox 1 again.
And we say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed. We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
6 miles, 6 miles. Tally 2, turning into me. Roger that. 12 miles. 4 miles. Making right. Roger that. Good throw.
I got the other one. Select Fox 2. Select Fox 2.
Coming hard.
Shoot him. I haven't got a tone.
Got the second one.
I got the second one on the nose right now.
Hey, I'm high cover on you.
Get a Fox. Get it. Lock him up. Lock him up.
Thank you for joining me on the battlefield. Chris Pilier, Lanterns Radio Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. Man, it's been a couple days. I actually had a little, I was a little under the weather last week. And, man, I got so much going on right now. It's, I can't tell you how excited I am about what's going on right now with Lanterns Radio Network, as well as the Battlefield Live radio program. We have a whole bunch of news coming with Lanterns, and we're actually meeting with some people this week that are going to be joining Lanterns, and we'll be making an official announcement next week. And I think it's going to be really, really beneficial for grassroots movement, the Tea Party type of groups out there, the people that are going to participate in the future of the nation and where the country goes. But we're going to have a big challenge. There is a revolution brewing out there, and it's not the type of revolution like we saw in 1776. This is a radical revolution that is being built in a democracy movement. At least that's what it's being labeled. And we have to recognize it. And we're going to talk about that tonight, and I think there's some compelling information. It's going to segue good or well into the conversations that we've had in the recent past. A lot of the things that I've been writing on Lanterns Radio Network about democracy. The fact that we are not a democracy. This is an important thing that we have to champion. This idea that we are a republic. The fact that the United States was founded as a republic. This is the rallying cry that we need to be around, not the alt-right, and quite honestly, folks, not Donald Trump. Even if you like Donald Trump, he's not the one we rally behind. We rally behind the American people and the American way. We'll be right back after this short break on the Battlefield. Battlefield Live, Chris Pilier. We'll be right back.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live.
You're listening to the Battlefield Live. Chris Pilier from Lanterns Radio Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. I want to thank you for joining me on the Battlefield tonight. And we have a great show lined up for you tonight. It's been a couple of days since I've been on the air. I was a little bit under the weather last week, and quite honestly, I wanted to be able to give you all 100%. I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday. I think maybe Thursday. I played a rebroadcasted show of an interview that I did with Milo Yiannopoulos. And if you've never heard of Milo Yiannopoulos or never heard him speak, or even if you have heard him speak, that was a compelling interview. And I really challenged Milo and kind of tried to get him outside of his comfort zone and talk about some of the things he believes. And it was a very, very good interview. It was a lot better than what I expected. And he is a very, very intelligent, articulate man. And I don't agree with Milo on everything. Mostly his tactics I do not agree with. But the interview was a really good one, and I recommend that you go take a look. You can go to lanterns.buzz or battlefield.buzz, or you can go to our other ambassador sites from Lanterns, which is conservarican.com, as well as libertycanonmedia.com. Check out, just do a keyword search for Milo Yiannopoulos, or Milo. You probably just put Milo in and do a search there, and it'll pull up that archived podcast. So take a listen. We are Facebook Live tonight, folks, so if you want to go to facebook.com/lanternsbuzz, you can find the Facebook Live video there and all the inner workings of what goes on behind the scenes in the Lanterns Radio Network. I don't know what you call it. I guess, Levin calls it the bunker. I don't know if maybe the octagon, since it's the battlefield. It's kind of like, the UFC, the octagon. I don't know what you call it. I just call it the studio, right? Pretty cool to be in the Lanterns Radio Network studio tonight. And what we're going to talk about tonight is the revolution that is taking place in the country. Look, if you've listened to my show before, you've heard me talk extensively about how progressives utilize a more democratic, I'm not talking about the Democratic Party, I'm talking about a form of democracy, a mobocracy is what I'd rather call it, in order to be able to shift power from the haves to the have-nots. It's an Alinsky-style tactic. The Democratic Party, as well as the progressive movement, has captured and utilized the Alinsky model as their rallying point, the modus operandi, if you will, of their garnering of power. And if we do not recognize this and we don't reconcile this fact, because it is a fact that they are utilizing these agitation, community organizing tactics in order to be able to garner power, we won't be able to fix the problem. The problem is that a large portion of the country is pretty much operating in a, sheep in the herd. They're following the shepherds. And some of them are following good shepherds, by the way. They're following people that are conservative leaders in the conservative movement, and that's fine. Okay, but the sheep need to learn how to be leaders. One of the challenges that conservatives have is that we are individuals, and we don't tend to like to flock together. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it sometimes provides bad things because we don't collaborate as well. One of the things that we have going for us at Lanterns Radio Network is that we're collaborating together in order to put together a strategy to fix the machine being the federal government. And that is really what we have to do. We have to come together. So the left, the progressives, Democrats, what they're doing is they're doing a different type of collaboration. And what's interesting is that they're starting to lose control over the mob. And they're starting to realize this, and if you don't read some of the left-wing publications out there in order to be able to get a perspective of what we're working against, you're doing yourself a disservice. In order for us to move forward, we have to understand the forces that are against us. Progressive forces are against American forces. It is an enemy to the United States, and it's an ideological enemy to Americanism. There's no doubt about it. If you understand where progressivism comes from, you'll know that it does not come from Jefferson, Washington, Adams, Hamilton, Madison. It does not come from our founders. It doesn't come from John Locke. It doesn't come from Adam Smith, Montesquieu. It doesn't come from those individuals that influenced our founders. It doesn't come from people that were inspired by America like de Tocqueville. I'm throwing a lot of names out there. These are people that influenced what has made America great. Progressives come from people like Friedrich Nietzsche and Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, even to go a little further back, Friedrich Hegel. You can go back to Darwin, more of his ideological views on evolution, not necessarily the scientific aspect of it. In fact, the people that follow progressivism, they I guess you would say they worship at the altar of humanism, secular humanism, right? Which is built in the idea of science being the guider of humanity. Not saying that science is bad, because I believe in science, but science to me is a way that we recognize the works of God. It's a validation, if you will. And if you come from a position that we can conquer science in order to be God, then you have a problem. In fact, that's what progressives do. They believe that we can use science to steer humanity, whether that's through psychology or sociology, through medicine or whatever it may be. The fact of the matter is we cannot ignore the fact that we have a soul. And what's happening in this revolution that I'm talking about, it's a cultural revolution. And the culture is very amalgamous. It's borderless. And the reason why is because they've built it in a way, and I say they, the progressives, secular socialists, Frankfurt Marxists, the Fabian socialists. These are all the vanguard of this revolution that we're experiencing. It's a slow, incremental revolution. We often think of revolutions as a violent revolution. This is not a violent revolution. They take on the mindset of someone like a Antonio Gramsci or a George Lukács or Georgy Lukács or whatever, how you want to pronounce it, where the violent revolution was not a useful one. It wasn't one that was going to be effective because people don't react well to violence. In fact, we reject violence. So the point I'm trying to get to here is the Cultural Revolution is in essence the fundamental transformation of American culture. And it's through all types of institutions. It could be through the federal government and the laws that are instituted. It could be through the education system. It could be entertainment, like Hollywood. Progressives work in all aspects of these in order to be able to create fundamental change in the United States, to shift us from a fundamentally Christian nation to a secular humanist nation. Now, a lot of you may be thinking when you're listening to this and you're hearing this for the first time, if you are hearing this for the first time, you may be thinking, well, this seems kind of way out there and philosophical. Well, how does this apply to the tangible things in life? Our families, our friends, our communities, our churches, our states, and the federal government at the end. And at the very, very bottom of that, and the most powerful aspect of the individual. How does it affect me as an individual? Well, you can see little increments of this everywhere. And it starts off with little things like, well, we don't want the 10 Commandments at the courthouse. While some of us may go, well, what's the big deal? The intention is to undermine Western culture. Western culture was founded on things like the Ten Commandments. The fact that we have laws in this country represent somewhat the laws that were represented in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not murder. Those are the type of things that have built Western civilization. We have built the Western civilization around property rights. The Ten Commandments is really a charter of property rights, if you really want to look at it like that. A lot of people might look at that. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, honor your mother and father. Well, guess what? Until you reach bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah, that's in the Jewish culture, or confirmation, which is in the Catholic world, or you become an adult, which would be, I guess, more of a secular world, you are the property of your parents. And if you don't believe this, how about when your child that's 13, 14 years old gets in a lot of trouble, what happens? The parents have to pretty much pay for it. Why? Because they're an extension of themselves until that child becomes an adult. There's been rituals within our culture, as well as other cultures, that represent this transformation from childhood or adolescence to an adult. So challenge yourself to understand what's made Western culture, and you'll find that at the root of it was things like the Ten Commandments. So when the left, the progressives, want to take the Ten Commandments out of the front of our courthouses, they are taking away the laws. Why? Because Democrats, which is similar to democracy, Democrats, progressives really, because the Democratic Party is just a vessel for a body of people, a body politic, which happen to be progressive to this point, Marxist in a lot of cases, socialist, whatever you want to call them. They see the rule of law as fundamentally opposed to democracy, because it is. Democracy is a rule of man. It's a mobocracy. There is no fundamental rights that you have been endowed by God with. You are not the owner of rights, or I should say the protector of rights that you were endowed by God with. You receive the rights from the state. The democracy determines what rights you have and how wealth is redistributed, where you get to come and go, whether or not you get to keep your home or not. That's what democracy is. So progressives wish to create a democracy. People like Jill Stein want a democracy. Why? Because they don't like a system of laws, because they believe that there's inequality under those laws, and they see systematic racism and things of that nature in places that don't exist, but that's what they see, because they want a fundamental transformation. They want us to tear down the old system and bring up a new system. They want revolution. And until we realize that they want revolution, we will not be able to fix the problem. You can't go across the aisle to work with progressives, because progressives don't want the same thing that we do. They want democracy. We want a republic. We want freedom, liberty. We want a rule of law. We do not want men ruling over other men. Or, for all of you out there that are sensitive to the political correctness, people over people. How about that? Folks, we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, and I'm glad that you've joined me. We got a packed show where we're going to discuss a little bit more of this revolution, and you got to stick with me. This is really important stuff, and thank you for joining me on the Battlefield. You're listening to Chris Pilier from Lanterns Radio Network, and the Battlefield Live radio program will be right back after this short break.
On Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
So first, let me say that I share the concern of the left over our new president-elect Donald Trump. I never thought I would even say the words President Donald Trump. But most of our fear is the concern with the executive branch. I think that's the thing that we can relate to. We both left and right, people that are really truly looking for a solution in the country. And this executive branch has been expanded greatly over the years and offers a huge sword that could be used to swing at the American people by the person in that position. Doesn't matter who it is, Donald Trump or Barack Obama, whoever, Bernie Sanders. I recognize the fears of the left and the new president, as he will soon wield the much expanded power that Barack Obama and his predecessors unleashed. Now, when Barack Obama was elected, okay, I was greatly concerned as the left is. So if you're listening to me and you're the left, I'm speaking to you.
You have impacted with the arm of the chair.
No, Mr. Spock. I meant, what happened to us?
That we have yet to ascertain.
Lincoln died 3 centuries ago on a planet hundreds of light years away.
More that direction, engineer.
Thank heaven.
Mr. Scott, there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting to be that recovered them.
I'm just as concerned as you are. I was concerned in such a way that I wrote an entire book about how the progressive movement has pushed to replace the American culture that has embraced individual liberty, the rule of law, equal justice under that same law, property rights, and the free and open society to debate ideas.
I had a wild neighborhood, I got to tell you, because my mother's Puerto Rican and my father's Negro, and we lived in a real big Jewish tenement building in an Italian neighborhood. Every time I go outside, the kids say, "Get him! He's all of them!"
My fear was that the nation was being pushed towards a totalitarian socialist state, much like you fear. All the people that are coming out and saying they are fearing Donald Trump because he's a quote-unquote fascist or like Hitler, they're fearing socialism much like I did in 2008. It's a different type of socialism. What I learned in this exercise is that the progressive movement was not solely an extension of operations of the Democratic Party, but rather a part of a dialectical expression within a society in class conflict that offers a similar counterpart. The one that you fear, Mr. and Mrs. Liberal, the alt-right.
You walk down the street and you'll see like a group of black dudes walking. Not just any old black dude. We talking, thugs. Talking, there'll be some thugs. And in the group, they got like one or two, sometimes as many as 3 white guys to be with them. You ever seen this? Well, let me tell you something about those white guys. Those white guys are the most dangerous motherfuckers in them groups.
You are listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth. Battlefield Live.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what?
What up, yo? Oh, I don't even know who the hell that is. It's some funny stuff, though. I got to keep up with the kids, you know what I'm saying? We got a great show still lined up for you tonight. Look, make sure if you haven't yet, go to lanterns.buzz. Check out the website there. There's a lot of great talent and a lot of great talent to come. I got some great news for you coming up in the very near term. Got some great plans we're going to be ironing out over the next couple of days, in the next week or so, and we'll be making a public release very, very soon. So check it out, lanterns.buzz. Make sure you also go to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at lanternsbuzz, and you can follow us at lanternsbuzz as well on Facebook. We're live right now, so if you want to see the studio, see me in studio, check it out, facebook.com/lanternsbuzz. Also, you can check out our live podcast. You can check it out not only on lanterns.buzz, the website, or battlefield.buzz for that matter. That is our show website. But you can also find it on Spreaker, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, all types of places, folks. We're probably on some sonograms out there. I think we're on Stitcher, Player.fm. I mean, we're just everywhere. So check us out. Make sure you give us some kudos. Also, look, there's a lot of people in this movement, folks. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that put their heart and soul into really fighting for the heart of the nation, the soul of the nation, the culture. If you come across somebody that you really like, give them props. It could be something as simple as commenting on their posts, if it's a blog post or an article that you read or a podcast. Comment on it. Tell them that you love their work and keep up the hard work. You'd be amazed how far a little bit of that will go. Other things you can do, I mean, you can share. Go to their work and share it in your social media. Let other people see it. And we're not going to agree with everybody. If you don't agree, debate that person. Challenge them. That's only going to make us better. Also, there may be things where you can donate to people. And I'm not just saying donate to Lanterns or our effort, but at the end of the day, we have to get this country straight, and we're not going to do it alone. So if you're listening to this, make sure that you share this content as well as the others on Lanterns.buzz and any other content out there that represents your views. And I challenge everything, even the knowledge of God. So check this out. We also we have a lot of work that's coming up in the next year. We got some things some conferences are going to be going to, so make sure you tune into all that. When you go to lanterns.buzz, go to the login sign up link up top and sign up for our newsletter. We got some great things coming up with that, so check all that out. All right, so we're getting into the revolution. The revolution that we've been talking about. In fact, I wrote a book about it called Deus Ex Machina, The Progression of Secular Socialism. You can pick it up on Amazon. This book details the revolution that I'm talking about in detail. Okay? And what's interesting about it is I kind of lay the groundwork for what we're going to be talking about tonight. And of course, this is a very, very minuscule amount of what's really going on out there. There's so much going on. In fact, much of my time behind the microphone has been talking about little bitty pieces of this, because this is the progression that we have to stop. We have to stop the progression towards socialism, right? We're actually, I hate to say it, but we are a socialist nation. We have socialist tenets. We don't have socialist values. We don't have a socialist, Americanism is not socialism. But we have things that have been attached to us that have created a socialist environment. And it's not very good. And a lot of things you may not realize are socialism. A lot of you may not realize that things like sociology are built on socialism or Marxism. A lot of you don't realize that psychology is built in the same framework as Marxism. I'm not saying that there's no usefulness in psychology or sociology, but understand where it comes from. Sociology is the study of social environments, right? Socialism is the propping up and the supporting of social environments. It has nothing to do about the rights of people. It has more to do about democracy. So when you hear all of these things, you have to understand and look at, when you're looking out the portholes of your life, because we all are like on this big ship, and we all are in our own cabins, and we have our own influences and things like that. And we're looking out of our own portholes, and we can only see kind of what's on the side. We don't see what's way out in front, and it's hard to see what we've been down. We kind of remember what we've been down, what we passed up. So when you're looking out these portholes, remember this. Socialism is democracy and vice versa. In order to be able to create socialism, a democracy has to be created. Democracy is always simply a transition to something more authoritarian or autocratic. Okay? Democracy never stays the same. It morphs, molds, evolves, and it evolves always towards authoritarianism. If you look at what happened in the Weimar Republic, the Weimar Republic broke down, it became a democracy, it turned into totalitarianism. If you look at what happened in Russia in the early 1900s, they had a democratic movement through agitation. If you look at what Lenin and Stalin did, they were agitators, community organizers. They went into Russia and they agitated with a very small minority, and they ended up taking over the country and killed thousands and thousands, if not millions of people Okay? Mao's China was a democratic movement. Pol Pot's movement was a democratic movement. Fidel Castro's movement with Che Guevara is or was a democratic movement. When you ever hear them talk about perpetual revolution, that's progressivism. Progressivism never gets to a goal. It continues to progress. And they put it in the context of good progress. It actually is regressive. If you look at the extremes or the ends that progressivism provide, you'll see places like North Korea. You'll see places like Zimbabwe. You'll see places like Venezuela and Brazil. You'll see places like Cuba. You'll see places like China. And if the country's fortunate enough to realize their problems, they'll end up in an autocratic fascistic state. That's the about as good as it gets. That's what happened to the Soviet Union. It turned into it stayed as a democracy, but turned more into a fascistic state. It went from left-wing to a right-wing European-style fascistic state, which Putin runs. So there's an article that I want to read to you. It's out of The Nation, and it's very important. It's called "The Revolution Will Not Be Staffed: How Big Organizing Can Take Down Trump." And I think this is going to be a very, very important video or article that I'm going to read to you. But I want to take another quick break because this is going to be one to digest. And I want you to hang tight with me. And when we get back, it's going to get real, folks. We got some great things coming up. So stick with me on the Battlefield Live radio program. We'll be back right after this short pause.
Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
So here comes about nationalism versus Americanism. So people that say that they're a nationalist populist, they don't know what it means. And, of course, there are some that do know what it means. Nationalism is not the same as what America is all about. Okay? Nationalism versus Americanism. This is a nuanced conflict. Nationalism is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interest as opposed to those of other nations or supernatural groups. Or supranatural. Supra, not super. Okay? So Americanism is different in that it embodies the principles that create the American culture that is revered. So it's not revering the nation, it's revering the principles. That is the difference.
Des deutschen Volkes sich ohne Ehre. Sie nennen sich Generale, weil sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält.
Hell no! Break yourself, fool!
Stop breathing and dedicate to me. Stop dreaming and terminate for me. All meaning you dedicate to me. All feelings you terminate for me.
Hitler contorted the laws of nature and Darwin's theory represented in The Origin of Species to fit his own hatred for the Jews. While Hitler expresses an interest in recognizing the real relevance to nature and the evidence of its laws, he fooled himself and millions of Germans into nudging nature along himself in a way that he exterminated 6 million Jews. So he went against his own principles. Why? Because he operated as a god, or at least he tried to. He believed that he could steer nature. And what ended up happening when man decides that they can steer nature? They kill.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. Battlefield Live.
Battlefield Live, Chris Pilier, Lanterns Radio Network. Still got a great show lined up for you here. We're going to get into the this revolution. This article I'm reading to you is out of The Nation. If you're not familiar with The Nation, well, quite honestly, it is about as left as they get. And look, I read a lot of stuff from the left. I want to understand. I hate to say our enemy, because I try not to look at people as our enemy. Progressivism is our enemy. It's an ideology that we have to fight. A lot of people participate in the progressive movement and don't realize what it means. They don't understand that democracy does not bring about fairness. It does not bring about equality. It brings about revolution, mobocracy, violence, the rule of man rather than the rule of law. So I want to dig into this article. It's called "The Revolution Will Not Be Staffed: How Big Organizing Can Take Down Trump." And the subtitle is, "There are millions of Americans just waiting to be put to work, and there's a hell of a lot of work to be done." And this is by Becky Bond and Zach Exley. Don't know who they are, but I just thought it was a pretty compelling discussion here, or article that they wrote. And think about this. Let me read that one more time. There are millions of Americans just waiting to be put to work. What does that mean? We often hear about the workers, right? The socialist workers. That is a collective mindset. What they're talking about, how big organizing can take down Trump. This is about community organizing and getting to the grassroots, organizing as a collective and fighting our republic. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is an ideal leader or a representative of our republic, would I rather call it as a representative, but he's our president. And the democracy movement doesn't like Donald Trump because he represents a more nationalistic, populistic, or even, I would say, a more of a right-wing European style of form of leadership. At least that's what way he's expressed himself publicly. He's not governed yet, so we have to give him that opportunity. So the article reads, "In the weeks since Hillary Clinton conceded the presidency to Donald Trump, people in every state of the union have rapidly progressed from asking themselves, how can it have happened? Or how could it have happened here? To what do we do now is the question. One of the greatest lessons from the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign," kind of sounds a little bit like Bernie Sanders' democratic socialism, doesn't it? "Was that a relatively tiny number of staff using fairly basic technology can unleash hundreds and thousands of volunteers to do serious work to advance a nationwide movement." Collective movement, right? "There is no reason this energy could not continue to grow. Passionate, moral, and urgent opposition to Trumpism, is what they call it, could represent the greatest opportunity for mass participation in politics since the anti-war movement of a half a century ago." What does the anti-war movement represent? Well, arguably it was the height of the progressive movement. It was the cultural revolution. You may have even heard it that way, or the sexual revolution. The fact of the matter is that this person is invoking the anti-war movement because the anti-war movement was the spring that brought about people like Bernardine Dohrn and Bill Ayers, people like that were influenced people like Barack Obama. That generation of radicals, the SDS movement, Weather Underground, the Black Panthers, all of these type of movements are starting to surface again. The person that's writing this, I have not done enough research to know who the people that are writing this, but I'm curious of what their background is, because I would imagine they would have been heavily influenced by the community organizing efforts that were seen during the days of SDS, the Students for Democratic Society. A lot of the people that participated in those movements, whether they were big names or small names, people that were maybe influenced by it and then led more progressive lives, are the people that are in the White House, are the people that are in Congress on the Democratic Party, or at least in the progressive side of the movement. people that are heading up groups like the Midwest Academy that teach people like Barack Obama and others to community organize, to agitate. People that were influenced by people like Saul Alinsky. So, but in order to, this is back to the article, but in order to turn the widespread grassroots readiness for action into a mass power movement, progressives will have to overturn the orthodoxy that limits the size of their campaigns to numbers that can be supervised by paid staff. Instead, we must embrace one of the new rules of organizing that was crucial to scaling volunteer leadership in the Sanders campaign. The revolution will not be staffed. Folks, I have mentioned that when people were making fun of Bernie Sanders as he, as a guy, that old man in his diaper sitting there with, meatloaf, spilled all over his lapel. This goofy guy is the future of the Democratic Party, and not necessarily Bernie Sanders himself. Bernie Sanders showed the left that the energy in their movement is not the old school Kennedy Democratic Party. It was not the old school Bill Clinton Democratic Party. It is the Bernie Sanders far left Marxist wing of the Democratic Party. That is where the energy. And we're talking about the anti-war movement of a half a century ago, the 60s, the sexual revolution, the cultural revolution. The children of that movement, those are the baby boomers. The children of that movement are people of my age that are some of the people that are leading these groups. Their children are some of the millennials that we're starting to see that are going to colleges and starting to get indoctrinated by people that were in this anti-war movement a half a century ago. So this is the culture that I'm talking about. When we talk about we have to get into the culture, that is a culture that has manifested in the United States like an abscess on America. While it seems to be a virtuous movement by trying to create fairness and social justice, if you don't understand what social justice means, just look at socialism. It's about fairness. It's about working within society to engineer society in order to way to make people equal. We know for a fact that you cannot make people equal. Equal outcomes are impossible. That's what socialism wants, is people to all be fair, people all to be equal. Understanding that the fact that a lot of these people on the left, they see it maybe as equal opportunity. We have equal opportunity in this country. In fact, it's sometimes unequal to the people that are supposedly the minorities in the country. And I say minorities, I'm not talking about a certain ethnicity. I'm talking about the people that don't speak for the rest of the country. What is democratic, or what part of our democracy looks at a 0.1% of the nation and decides to dictate to the rest of the nation what their rules upon marriage are? How is that represented in a quote-unquote democracy? Right? So let's go a little bit further into this. It's clear that the more paid staff that progressive organizations and campaigns have hired over the last few decades, the fewer volunteers have been engaged, and the more power we've lost. Yet progressives continue to equate staff headcount with power. These days, our challenges are so big that really making change will require a movement so massive we could never afford to pay all the leaders needed for it to succeed. So what they're alluding to here is the capitalistic model has failed them. And why do they see that it has failed them? Not because of the stupid ideas that they have that nobody wants to pay for, and the fact that there's not enough people in the leadership that are willing to be paid to do stupid stuff and to believe stupid crap, that they believe that they have to work in a way that is unorganized. It's more of a mob, right? Mobocracy? Democracy? While working on the Sanders campaign, we experienced firsthand how much volunteer leaders are capable when the right people are given the right tools, responsibility, authority, and accountability. And when they have a major meaning mission, like helping to elect a progressive to the presidency, or more immediately, leading the opposition to Trumpism. So the Tea Party grew up in or sprouted and stood up in the face of tyranny. It stood up for liberty. It stood up against progressivism. And it had a huge voice because it was the opposition. It was the underdog. We all love the underdog. Well, guess what, folks? If you were a part of that movement, a part of the Tea Party movement, we're no longer the underdog. We are seen as being in power. Many of us may not have voted for Trump that we're in a Tea Party and see that Donald Trump doesn't represent us, but we are seen as a collective as the ones in power. Remember that Alinsky looked to the powerful to take the powerful away from the they were the haves to give to the have-nots, the redistribution of power, the redistribution of wealth. We are the haves. And right now there's no other time in history, at least modern history, that we have been seen as having all of the power. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have the presidency, we have the Supreme Court, what it appears to be. We have the wind in our sails. And a lot of us are tuning out. We don't see that there's an effort out there like the one I'm talking about here. We have to be ready to get on the battlefield with these type of people, and not in a way that's divisive. We have to stand with them, and when Donald Trump does something wrong, these people, that the ones that don't like Donald Trump, and they're out there just simply to go against Trump, will see that we're not against something that's not that Trump is doing that's not American. That is an opportunity for us to reach out to these individuals and try to explain to them in a common forum that Americanism is the way. We can disagree, but we also can agree on principle. You know, I often go to some of my friends. I have some friends that are gay. And when we debate about, the rights of marriage and things of that nature, my argument has always been, why does the government have to validate your marriage? And they can never answer it. It's because they believe that there's justice that is needed for them because they've been treated poorly. So they want, in many cases, and they won't say it like this, but they want, in many cases, for straight people, heterosexuals that are married, to feel the pain that they felt. They want justice, but the justice is more retribution rather than it is justice. Justice to me is get government out of it. The same thing goes for the movement that I'm talking about here, this revolutionary movement. They want retribution. They want retribution for slavery. They want retribution for Jim Crow. And they can never quench that thirst for retribution. There's nothing that we could do to quench that desire. Nothing. During the Democratic primary, we had, this is back to the article, we had hundreds of thousands of Americans eager to get to work to elect Bernie Sanders. Now that Trump is headed for the White House, there are millions of people looking for somewhere to channel their energies. This is the retribution, the energy, the anger. They are ready to fight back as members of the determined opposition and to help build up a new alternative to the failed neoliberal consensus that paved the way to Clinton's defeat. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I guess they're saying that Clinton is a neoliberal, which I would agree. I would agree that Bernie Sanders is a neoliberal. I would say that people like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee are liberals, classic liberals. The revolution will not be staffed. This is some hippy-dippy reflex that suggests everyone participating in the campaign is equally capable of tackling any role. To be effective, a volunteer organization has to have a structure with defined roles, responsibilities, and defined hierarchy, or definite hierarchy. In a fast-paced, under-resourced situation like an insurgent political campaign, it won't always be neat and tidy. In fact, at many times, it is a beautiful mess. Actually, revolution is a beautiful mess in their mind. The violence, the chaos, because it's tearing down the old. It's nihilistic. If we understand the roots of progressivism, we will go back, like I said earlier, to Nietzsche, which is a nihilist. He believed that you had to tear the system down. In many cases, people like Bannon and the alt-right, they participate in the same type of nihilism. They believe that we need to tear the system down, but what do we replace it with? What has made America great? if we were to make it great again. Ask someone that's of the alt-right or subscribes to Trumpism, quote-unquote, popular nationalism, what has made America great? You will ask them the hardest question to answer. And if they answer you, make sure it's about the Constitution. Make sure it's about the principles and the purpose lined out in the Declaration of Independence. And these are timeless principles. These are, it's self-evident is what is in the Declaration of Independence. It's a declaration. It's not a foundation of rights. It's a declaration of rights. In a fast-paced, under-resourced situation like an insurgent political campaign, it won't always be neat, tidy, and at times a beautiful mess. That was certainly true in the Bernie Sanders campaign. But with careful attention to structure, accountability, and detail, the work will get done. Under those circumstances, volunteer teams almost always come through. Now, let's think about this for a second. How can you do this without leaders? You see, the Tea Party movement had leadership. It had people that were marching in a certain direction, and they brought about people that were willing to go for the fight. How can a mobocracy operate without a leader? Because it is a mobocracy. That's why. Mobocracy doesn't have leaders. It has passions. That's it. Here's a little bit more. It says, in the Saul Alinsky tradition that has come to dominate the fairly way most progressives think about organizing, some of this way that they write this is kind of poor. Whether they know it or not, the role of organizers is to win people over one by one in personalized consciousness-raising sessions. The ratio of organizers to people being organizers must therefore be very small. It is difficult to imagine campaigns based on this structure scaling up, which is why most progressive campaigns aren't big enough to win. I would disagree with them, but I go forward. It's time for every community or advocacy organization that is trying to build power to question the Alinsky model. I question it for different ways or different reasons. Every group that stands for something important, no matter how small, has a list of supporters. The supporters want to help your effort succeed. Put them to work. Onboard them the same way you would train paid staff. Create volunteer positions and teams and allow people to apply to join. Give them some test and a trial period. If it doesn't work, tell them so and look for someone new. This is no different than the Alinsky model. It's just they're trying to somehow look at it as a new evolution of it. There are a ton of people out there with an incredible life, and work experience. Badly written. Who were just waiting to shine in a part-time role of responsibility. Remember that working people who are teachers, construction workers, or caregivers can be denied access to movement leadership when organizations insist on only giving responsibility to full-time paid nonprofit employees. They're starting to see kind of the Tea Party model, that people actually work outside of their nonprofit status. Let's see here. On the Sanders campaign, our best volunteers were working-class women of color. In organizations that fail to rise to the challenge of giving volunteers meaningful roles in the movement, like-minded volunteers can get work done on their own. All right, so I'm going to post this in our archives on Lantern.buzz. I only got a few more minutes, and I want to wrap up my thoughts here. What they're talking about is they want and they need a movement that is getting more radical. It's going to progress into something a little more unhinged. They want to tear the system down. They want everything they can possibly do. They're in desperate states or straits in order to be able to tear the system down, and they see that they do not have the power that they had just 4 years ago, or hell, just a couple of years ago, or a year ago with Barack Obama. They definitely don't have the power that they had in 2009 when they had the Senate, the Congress, and the presidency, and a hope to get the Supreme Court. They're in desperate straits. So when in desperate straits, it takes desperate measures. And what we're going to see is a more radical left, a more violent left, a more unorganized left. But understand that Saul Alinsky, and this person gets Saul Alinsky wrong. Saul Alinsky was about deorganizing. And he was about deorganizing the current construct and building up a new construct. Of course, he never had a proper model for the construct that was going to replace the old. He believed that was somebody else's goal or job. He just wanted to be able to tear down the other system and give it to the people that were going to make the system work. The people that he wanted to give that power to are the people that this person or these two people in the nation are talking about. It's the radical revolutionaries that are more or less organizers. So what do we need to do? Well, first we need to understand this. I've been studying this stuff for quite a while. I've been studying Marxism, communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, statism. I've been studying it for quite a while. And number one, you can listen to this program. I talk about it a lot, and I try to make it simple. I know some of this gets into deep and heavy stuff. But if we understand what our enemy is, the progressive movement, progressives, the vanguard of the progressive movement, not the people that are just along for the ride because they want to vote a Democratic candidate in. So we got to understand all this. We have to educate ourselves. I often talk about this, educating ourselves. This book, Deus Ex Machina, The Progression of Secular Socialism, is a book I wrote that explains how we got to where we are now. It'll give you all the tools that you need to know in order to be able to recognize articles like this is a really potent form of Marxism, and be able to see these type of things and know the severity of our situation. You'll also be able to articulate what it is that we're up against. You'll understand the roots of it, nihilism. It's a real quirky, weird word, but you understand where it comes from. You'll be able to recognize it. I often equate it to like the Force. If you're a Star Wars fan and you have the Force on your side, you can feel the Force, right? If you understand where your ideology comes from, where your belief system comes from, you will know you'll know what's alien to that. When I learned about the American way, when I learned about why America was great, I bathed in it. I just soaked it all up. I read books like The Great George Washington. What was the name of that book? The Real George Washington. I read The Real Thomas Jefferson. I read the Real Benjamin Franklin. I read the 5,000-Year Leap. I read numerous books, and I got more advanced. I'm actually about to read this book, The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which is actually a book that Mad Dog Mattis carries with him. I'm going to read this book. Why? Because I want to know who Mad Dog Mattis is. If he carries his book with him, it's got to tell me who he is. But I'm going to study this stuff, and I'm going to know it like the back of my hand so I can recognize what's not American. If this isn't American, I don't support Mattis because he carries his book. I carry a Bible. He carries this. Maybe a great book. It may have great principles in it. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman military general. He may look at for military tactics. So understanding where these ideologies come from, you'll understand who the people are that practice them. And you'll understand what ends they want. And when you can understand all those things, you can fight it effectively. And that's what we have to do. We have to fight these things effectively. So, folks, I want to thank you for joining me on the Battlefield Live radio program. We have a lot of work to do. Our work has not stopped at this election. And I challenge you to stick with me on the Battlefield Live radio program, but most of all, go to lanterns.buzz, our network, lanterns.buzz. Check out all the talent there, and make sure you give good kudos to all the people there. Give them a listen. Comment on their work. Share their work on social media, Twitter. You can find me at LanternsBuzz, as well as at Paul Revere Again. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Paul Revere Again, or the Lanterns Radio Network at LanternsBuzz. And make sure you check out all our affiliates, Liberty Media, LibertyCannonMedia.com, ConservaRecan.com, Battlefield.buzz. And we'll talk to you Wednesday night on the Battlefield Live. Talk to you later, Tater.